Murdered bodies of hundreds of Algerian Muslims were once thrown into this river by the French police, and recently the mayor of Paris is using it for a photo op. Anne Hidalgo took a swim in the River Seine to prove the waters are clean enough to host open swimming events during the Olympic Games. But as the Olympics wrapped up, stories about the pollution of the river hit the news. It's ironic because it's not just pollution that dirties the river, it's blood. The blood of Algerians. The French occupation of Algeria began with the 1830 invasion, initiating a brutal colonial period. Uprisings were met with severe repression, mass arrests, and public executions. Large areas of fertile land were confiscated from Algerian farmers and given to European settlers, causing widespread dispossession and poverty. The French also suppressed Algerian culture, language, and religion, replacing Arabic with French in official settings and restricting Islamic practices. 130 years later, the 1960s saw the climax of the Algerian War of Independence. This violent conflict began in 1954 between the National Liberation Front, the FLN, a nationalist political party in Algeria, and French colonial forces. On October 5, 1961, the French Prefecture of Police imposed a curfew for Algerian Muslim workers, French Muslims, and French Muslims of Algeria in response to state-targeted violence from the FLN.
Thousands of the Algerians who live in Paris, men, women and children, will stage their largest demonstration yet against police restrictions.
In response, 30,000 to 40,000 Algerians peacefully marched towards Paris on the evening of October 17, 1961, to protest the curfew, but the demonstration turned into a massacre. That night, French police beat, killed and threw between 200 and 300 Algerians into the Seine, the river that runs through the center of Paris, and arrested about 12,000 Algerians in the crackdown. Yet, the official report the next day mentioned only 3 deaths.
Donc nous demandons la reconnaissance de ce crime et nous demandons la reconnaissance des crimes du colonialisme français commis en Algérie pendant 130 ans. La colonisation, des crimes odieux, des massacres ont été commis contre des Algériens.
The French government censored the news, destroyed archives, and blocked journalists from investigating the incident. It wasn't until 2012, 51 years later, that French president even acknowledged that this tragedy had happened. As the world watches the Olympics or other events in France, do we remember the history of the Seine? The swimming may seem unrelated, but it connects to a deeper historical wound that remains unhealed.
Pour moi, effectivement, une stèle, ça m'est égal, mais l'essentiel qu'on manifeste à chaque fois, chaque 17 octobre, voilà, on doit être sur les lieux pour rendre hommage à ces victimes, à ces martyrs pour l'indépendance algérienne.
To this day, no one has been prosecuted for the killings, as they fell under the general amnesty for crimes committed during the Algerian War. Today, we observe Algeria as an independent nation, free from France's persecution of Muslims, but the repercussions of colonial crime are still embedded deep inside Algerian society.
Le quotidien, notre quotidien, c'était comme ça, la découverte de cadavres, soit ceux qui étaient pendus dans les bois de Vincennes, dans le bois de Boulogne, soit des cadavres qu'on trouvait comme ça, par hasard. C'est pour ça que le nombre, nous ne le saurons jamais. Jamais on saura un nombre exact.
Colonization, heinous crimes, and massacres. Does this sound familiar? Repression, mass arrests, land confiscation, settler colonialism, dispossession, suppressing culture and language, restricting Islamic practices. The overbearing injustice is something we're seeing today in Palestine, and it raises the question: how many in Gaza will never see justice? Perhaps we won't live to witness this, and even if the idea falls, would that be enough to account for the genocide of over 186,000 Palestinian men, women, and children? You see, true justice may elude us in this world, but Allah is Al-Adil, the most just, and He commands us to resist injustice with everything that we have, our hands, tongues, and hearts. Those whose blood spilled in the waters of the Seine and in the streets of Gaza remind us exactly what we strive for: justice in this life and in the next. 132 years and counting for Algeria, 76 years and counting since the Nakba. The struggle for justice has no expiration date, and as long as injustice exists, we will resist.
ونضع الموازين الْقِسْطَ لِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ فَلَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا وَإِن كَانَ